Okay, Brad, we're here. You are back from Southern California.
Sunny Los Angeles.
Where you saw The Last of Us Part 2.
I played The Last of Us Part 2.
Yes.
Which we were told that we were among the first people outside of Naughty Dog to play The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
Which I think makes me extremely special.
Wow. And they simultaneously ran a live stream where they showed a trailer, among other things.
Yep. Trailer covered a good bit of the story stuff we saw in the demo we played.
And release date, which was earlier than the leaked. There was like a Swedish leak claiming it would be out like the 28th, but it's the 20th, right?
20th? 21st? I think it's the 21st because I saw people saying that not having it come out on 2/20/2020 was a mistake.
2/20. It's, if it was the 20th month, then maybe you'd have something.
Sure.
But not everything can be the Beatles rock band.
Certainly not. Or the Dreamcast.
Exactly. What did they show? Was it a big presentation, big setup ahead of time, and then they're like, all right, now you're going to play?
Presentation, the demo broken up into two spots of like one part early in the game, one part later on in the game.
Okay.
The presentation was Neil Druckmann, who I guess is kind of at this point the sort of head creative at Naughty Dog.
Yeah, I guess so.
As of the last 2-3 games they've put out. He gave a big presentation. He actually acknowledged something I think about all the time, which is that The Last of Us is a game that is kind of self-contained. Like it really...
Right.
He used the phrase like stands on its own, I think is how he put it. Like he said that they get that feedback a lot of like, this game feels like it tells a complete story.
Yeah.
His characters end up in a place that is a natural conclusion to the arc.
And I remember like at the time, there was some sentiment. I mean, for as popular as The Last of Us was, I think there was like some people were like, man, I hope they never make another one of these. I was
totally one of those people.
Yeah. And then they went ahead and announced a sequel, and people were like, yeah! So whatever.
He swore up and down in this presentation that the 17 million copies of the first game that were sold had nothing to do with the fact that there's a sequel. He came out and very directly said, like, hey, we're making a sequel because we have another story we want to tell. Like,
and they told that other small story with the other piece they released, right? The
Left Behind DLC. So that's where I actually like kind of need to check myself on this, because I have had this exact same skepticism about Naughty Dog for like 3 games in a row now.
Yeah.
Like there was that DLC for The Last of Us, there was Uncharted 4, then there was Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and in every one of those cases I was like,
I can't believe they're making another one of these.
Something else. Like this feels like it's run its course. And then in every case I played it and I was like, wow, this is incredibly well written.
I feel like
this completely justifies its existence.
That's me with Grand Theft Auto games. Yeah. It's always like, what would they even do next? Like just pack it in.
So in that vein, he came out and talked very fundamentally about how like they're approaching the story in this, and also just kind of seems like how they approach their stories generally, which is like the right way to build up. Yeah. Which is like kind of laying out what the core themes are that they're trying to explore. First Last of Us was, as he put it, like very much about like the parental drive to protect your offspring, like even your surrogate offspring in that case. Like even when it drives you to like questionable or even kind of despicable ends.
Oh yeah.
Like that was sort of the core of that game. He said this game is a revenge story. It's about rage, but it's not just about like directionless rage. It's about the desire for retribution. And he said this is the type of revenge tale that could only be told in a video game, which could mean a lot of things. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to talk to him personally and ask what that meant. But anyway, it's a number of years after the first game. Like they find kind of a human. After.
Hey, hang on a second. Before, like, how do you feel about that as an enjoyer of the first game? Like,
which part?
Something about. There are a lot of games about rage and revenge. Sure. There are a lot of games about like, I'm on a quest to get this person, and then at the end you get this person. Yeah. Or maybe they escape for another game. That doesn't, for as much as the first game, like those themes feel like they aren't as explored in video games. Yes. It's interesting to be like, this one you're gonna fuck shit like that's not his words. But when you say rage and revenge, those
sound like
I'm going to murder my way up to someone.
That is very well trod territory.
That's a video game.
Yeah, kind of like Uncharted 4 was. Like the core of that game was like familial bonds and stuff like that. Like you're right. Like those are core themes that are not very well represented. And this, it's hard to say honestly. Like. In his presentation, he referred to an event that happens. So, like, Ellie is the main playable character in this. I mean, she was briefly playable in the first game, and she was like, 12, 13 or something.
Yeah.
she's 19 now, so she's an adult and kind of has her own agency. And something happens.
The trailer
makes her want to kill.
The trailer seems to really kind of just give that away.
Yeah,
unless like to the point where that's misdirection. But
that's kind of I'm starting to lean in that direction. Like the whole first half of the demo, what I played, which is early on in the game, revolves around romantic tension between her and her friend.
Yeah.
And then the trailer heavily implies that something happens to her friend.
Yeah.
To the point that, like I said, he was sort of dancing around in the presentation what the nature of this horrific act is that she wants revenge for, to the extent that, it does make me wonder if it's a bait and switch. Because
it's weird for
why would he be so evasive about it when the trailer
pretty clearly spells it out
that the girlfriend is involved.
And so there's been some speculation then that if there is a twist that maybe it's Joel.
Yeah, but he shows up in this demo.
Yeah,
he's hardly
after the revenge has already taken place. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no.
So
she's on her revenge.
She's on her revenge tale and sees Joel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
So
chronologically,
you can say. We can probably say, unless Joel is a ghost,
Giant Bomb can confirm
that the revenge tale is not Joel got killed and she's on a mission.
Yeah, because he shows up much later in the game.
Okay,
when whatever has happened, and she's very much in her.
Unless that's some misdirection, and she only thinks he's dead. Anyway, all right, we could tear that stuff down all day, but it seems the implication
would not be the first time they have told a story that way.
Her girlfriend gets murdered, kidnapped, whatever.
The first part of the playable demo I played was very much so she's an adult. She's they're part of this community that they find at the end of the first game. You know, they've been on their own, on the run, eking out a hardscrabble existence for the entirety of the game, and then they finally find kind of a little enclave of real people that are having some semblance of a normal life. So they've settled there. She's part of this first part of the demo I played is her and Dina is the name of the friend / kind of budding love interest.
Yeah.
They're out on horseback on patrol in a blizzard. They're picking through the remains of suburbs and a strip mall and a library, just kind of living life. In a
as you do
in a fungus driven post-apocalyptic zombie nightmare. This developer is incredibly good at sort of world building and character building and storytelling, and this is no exception to that. There's tons of good banter, tons of good background detail. There's this kind of system of logbooks that they have to literally you open up a logbook and write in sort of the day that you patrolled here, and you can kind of read contextually what the previous people who patrolled through found.
Okay.
They build the reality very well.
Right. Yeah.
And in the course of that, of course, there's a lot of sort of flirting back and forth and that kind of thing between these characters. They seem to do a really good job in that sequence of building a new kind of social environment for Ellie. It's not just her and Joel anymore. Obviously this new friend is involved. They talk about this guy Eugene, who is an elderly guy that they thought of as kind of a mentor, who has passed away recently, and he loved to tinker with electronics, and he would go out on his own a lot, and they find his weed lab. Okay. While they're out on patrol, they find a generator, and then they find his subterranean weed lair.
We've all got one,
and they totally spark a J.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there a trophy for that?
I hope so.
Is it legal there?
It's very possible.
Okay.
I don't know.
The real questions.
Yeah. It's all very story-driven action. The story is very much moving you from place to place. That section, very, very similar to the first game. The stealth combat is pretty much exactly like you remember. It's got the...
So you have Dina following you, playing a similar role that Ellie did in the first game?
Yes, in that sequence, yes.
Yeah.
Listening mode is kind of the same. You can still sort of see enemies through walls. That section is very heavy on kind of zombie enemies, which it's much more just sneak up and do stealth kill type gameplay.
Yeah.
Later on with the human stuff is when it gets a lot more dynamic, but that stuff is very familiar. There is one new heavy zombie type called the Shambler, I think.
Okay.
Which apparently just takes a shitload of damage to take down. I just walked around it because it's blind and moved on. But that first section of the game is very much about setting the stage for what Ellie's new reality is and what her what she's invested in terms of relationships with other characters and that sort of thing. And then we jump forward to much later in the game when shit has gone down.
Yeah.
And she's out for blood.
Alone?
Yes.
At this point?
Alone at that point. So you're in Seattle at that point. Seattle is controlled by the WLF, which people colloquially refer to as wolves.
Okay.
I think it's like the Western Liberation Front or something like that. But they're like this like hardcore, like authoritarian paramilitary organization that just like controls the city with an iron fist.
Every apocalypse needs one.
Yep. There are actually like 3 in this game.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like they just execute intruders on site, et cetera, et cetera. They appear to be in some kind of conflict with Fedra, which is another faction. There are references to, she's there looking for a guy named Tommy, who's in the trailer. Tommy was friends with Eugene, this older guy who passed away.
Okay.
There are references to Tommy and Eugene kidnapping and torturing a Fedra general. So, or maybe Fedra is the remnants of the federal government or something like that.
Right.
But like there's a lot of, a lot of ill shit goes on in this universe. So you're in Seattle looking for Tommy. And that is a much more combat heavy portion of the demo. And that's where I felt like I got a much better sense of how different this game. Let me backtrack. That's not to say that the game is different, because it is actually very similar to the first game. What I mean is I got a sense of the things that are different or that they have added here.
Right.
But again, like that core stealth frame is like very, very familiar.
Okay.
From the first game, like all the same types of mechanics. But that's fine with me. Like I don't think you played much of that game.
I played enough of it to know that it was not for me.
It's weird. That game is weird to me because I feel like it broke down 2 different lines for people. They either put it on very easy and just plowed through it because the story was very good.
Yeah.
Or they, like I did, they put it on hard and played it as this like hard Scrabble like survival game because it's very much focused on like crafting and finding materials. And on hard, those materials are very limited, so you have to make a lot more decisions because like you might only have 3 bullets at any given time.
I have found, well, like me personally, like I thought the multiplayer was like extremely interesting.
I forgot that game even had multiplayer.
It was like the whole, like you're building a camp and it's like your friends list gets pulled in and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the gameplay, like whatever, it was still the gameplay. So ultimately it was just like, but like the framework for it, I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of feel that way about just the basic stealth action. Like it's a very, like to me, it's a very dynamic and like reactive kind of stealth. Like it's not at all sort of watch this guy patrol like a 3-point route and wait to get him at the last minute.
Yeah.
It's much more reactive. It's much more like get into situations, think very quickly on the fly. Okay, I've got 3 options here. How can I get out of this situation? Same stuff as the first game where like you might have a bottle or a brick and those are distraction items if you throw them, but if somebody catches you and comes at you, you can burn that resource to stun them quickly. Right. And then get a chance to either knife them or run away or whatever. Like stuff like that. Let's see.
So combat in that second portion, the wolves are humans. Like is that
they've got you kitted out pretty well at that point. You've got like a hunting rifle, a shotgun, a pistol, and a revolver.
Okay.
You find a bow. In that sequence,
like ample ammo at that point as well.
In this demo, yes, you had a fair amount.
Okay, so hard to know necessarily if that's how it'll play out.
I would guess that was probably the default difficulty. I died a number of times. This was harder than I remembered that game being. And like I said, I played through the first one on hard, so it's a lot. Probably the single biggest change or thing that was really fucking me up in this thing was dogs.
Sure,
the humans have dogs now.
Yeah,
and they can smell you. Like when you're in, so like listening mode in this game, like it desaturates and you can see people through walls. When there are dogs afoot, you can also see your scent trail when you're in that mode. Yeah. And the dogs are just relentless about tracking you down. Like I got into multiple situations where there were just like a dog or 2 and like 4 or 5 people converging on me when I was stuck in a corner and it was rough.
Yeah.
But the game really lets you get away. Like I would say it's like it feels more punishing than the first game, but also more forgiving because Ellie is a lot more nimble. Like you can jump now. Like there is a jump button, which there was not in the first game.
It's like Bionic Commando Rearm too.
Right. Yes.
Does Ellie have a mustache?
Maybe that's where her friend lives.
Okay.
In her arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. She can like jump and clamber over stuff. You can go prone now. I don't think that was in the first game. And there's like there's like tall grass dynamics, but like it's not your typical like hidden or not hidden binary for most stealth games.
Okay.
They refer to it as analog stealth, where they said he used the term occluder.
Oh wow!
If you're not behind an occluder, you are not truly hidden. Like they can always see you at some point, even if you're laying in tall grass. But it just sort of dampens their ability to see you. So
like they may have to be closer to get the right angle,
which I thought was like a cool way to put it, or a cool way to design that. It's like I'm never questioning, okay, does the game think I'm hidden right now or not? Like if I'm not behind a wall, I'm not. Like that's just a simple equation there.
But you have this kind of like tall grass thing of like, okay,
yes.
and I guess in those situations you don't quite know how well you're hitting.
It ramps up this kind of oppressive like white noise sound anytime somebody is starting to notice you, so it makes it very clear that you're about to get caught.
Yeah.
And it does give you a lot more leeway to try to get away with stuff.
Yeah, because I feel like, like games eventually evolved to just like, hey, we're just going to put an indicator on the screen.
Right.
If Sam Fisher's light on his back is lit up, you're hidden, like that type of stuff, specifically because of situations where you're just like, I don't know if I'm truly safe or not. Yeah.
And that's a very abstract way to handle that problem to me, whereas this is much more about reading the environment.
Right.
And
trying to make it more realistic.
Right. Which is another component of why I feel like the whole thing is a lot more reactive than a lot of stealth games. It's not like plugging in variables in their stealth formula.
Right. I guess like my thing is like that can either be like really amazing and feel more realistic, or it can be frustrating if you're in a bunch of situations where you're like, I thought I was hidden and then I got jacked.
Sure.
Like that's, that might not be fun for some people.
Sure.
But yeah.
So because she's a lot more nimble, she can get away a lot better. And the game's pretty forgiving about if you just book it, even if you get caught and people are shooting at you, if you book it, you can kind of break their line of sight, and then their sort of alertness level goes down to patrol from pursue. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I've played Metal Gear. I know how stealth games destabilize back down to being cool.
This game is just very it's very hot and cold that way.
Yeah.
In my limited experience yesterday playing it. So yeah, the dogs are a huge thing with human enemies in this. Like they really effed up my day repeatedly.
Can you pet the dogs?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Can you kick the, like, how do you fight a dog?
Shoot them.
Okay. I saw like, is there like a melee versus dog? Are you kicking dogs? Or
I got jumped on by a dog a couple times, but I think it just killed me. I can't remember if that was a health-based thing or what, but I mean, you can struggle your way out of close encounters. The other cool, probably the coolest detail, I don't think this is in the first game, but the enemies refer to each other by name. They're not characters in the game.
Right.
They even do that with the dogs.
Yeah.
Where like if you kill an enemy and then they find the body, you'll get a line of like shit, it's Tommy, and they're like, what's going on? They're like, they got Tommy. Like we gotta, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
It's a small thing, and it seemed like they wrote and recorded a lot of those.
That seems like a huge,
because I kept hearing names, different names, like whatever. There were a bunch of them, and like even like when I would kill. Typically, like it would be a human dog pair patrolling around, and if I would get the dog first, like they would yell the name of the dog, like they were really pissed off.
Yeah,
like it just adds this extra little layer of just kind of believability to it that I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I mean they want to make it seem like it's fucked up that you killed this dog that has a name and all this. I
mean these are bad people, but yes. So God, what else is going on in this? There is new stuff. Like they added, you had like a can bomb, like a tin can full of nails type throwable bomb in the first game. I think there's kind of a proximity based planted version of that now. Yeah. But very iterative, like the stealth action, very much like kind of that same mold with just a few things layered on here and there. What else did they do here? Weapon upgrade stuff, like they let us mess around with the weapon bench. Like that stuff is very much like the first game. The skill tree seems a lot more expanded now, though, because it is a tree. In the first game, it was just, if I remember, just a kind of a short list of skills.
Okay.
And now it was broken out into I think survival and stealth and precision, which are pretty self-explanatory. The interesting thing to me is that when I was playing, I only ever had 3 skill categories, and in the B-roll they gave us, there's a shot of Ellie finding a hunting magazine that adds a 4th category, which is the precision category, which is shooting based. A lot of like weapon stability and recoil type upgrades. And as far as I remember, I never had that tree in either of the segments of the demo I played. So I wonder if like entire bits of the skill tree are just missable. Yeah. If you don't find those pickups that generate that stuff. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. Like for the 4th or 5th time, like it's very much that game.
Yeah.
Again, with some new stuff that I thought added some interesting new elements to the stealth action. The spaces seem a lot bigger. Go figure. You're on a much more powerful console,
right?
So like,
I was gonna say, like obviously they remastered the game at some point. Like, how do you feel this compares visually to? Oh yeah, I mean, to that stuff, or even
way better, obviously.
Uncharted, or
I would put it on like the level of an Uncharted 4 in terms of fidelity. But this is such a muted kind of art design compared to even an Uncharted,
right?
You know, like that's very swashbuckling treasure hunt type stuff. And this is just like, hey, everything sucks ass.
Yeah, here's a bunch of downtrodden, broken shit, and then plants that have grown over it.
Yes, but it's very good looking, downtrodden, broken shit. So, yeah, I am very much looking forward to playing it. Like, they have not, like I said, as much as I have doubted them, they have not let me down on one of these sequels yet, even when it seemed like it impossible to satisfy. So I'm super looking forward to playing this. I really enjoy this type of stealth.
And then how are you?
The story
I was gonna say, how are you feeling about the story that you've seen so far?
I mean, I kind of agree with you that when you say, hey, this is a revenge story, like that feels like a very familiar road to go down for a video game. But
yeah, they've been really good storytellers over the years.
Yeah, so they've earned a massive amount of leeway.
Yeah,
on,
for sure,
on the types of stories they want to tell. So I will 100% show up to see what they did.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
super looking forward to it.
We will show up in February, and you can throw some bricks and stuff.
Fungus.
Throw a brick at a dog.
Fungus.
The video game.
Yep, that's right.
This is a story about throwing bricks at dogs.
Sparky, no.
Oh no. All right. Thanks, Brad.